ProPublica was reporting about two women who have died in Texas as a result of the abortion ban there. And this last day of voting, abortion is on the ballot in Texas and elsewhere. No, Texas doesn't actually have an abortion protection or expansion of abortion rights on the ballot, but they do have the senator, Colin Allred, and he is evidently very close to beating Ted Cruz. And Texas is a perfect example. If you are in a state where your state is going to go a certain way and you think your vote doesn't count because it's going to go blue or it's going to go red, the only way that to really enshrine the protection of abortions across this country is to do a federal ban. And to do a federal ban, the Democrats need Congress. And that turning that red seat blue in Texas is key to that. So if you haven't voted yet in Texas, get out and vote, even if you think, the Trump is going to take the state and it doesn't matter. It matters because without getting Congress, they cannot protect abortion throughout. And just as a side note, for those who think why is it that Congress can protect these rights even if the Supreme Court didn't? Like, when can the Supreme Court essentially be overruled by Congress? The Supreme Court didn't say that there was a right in the Constitution. Like, let's say, when they talk about gun rights and they say that there is a Second Amendment gun right in the Constitution, Congress can't take away that right because they can't override the interpretation of the Constitution. But what the Supreme Court did in Dobbs is say that there's not a right in the Constitution for an abortion. And by saying that there's not a right, Congress can create that right by other means. They can create it legally. They can do a national abortion ban. And that that's what the Democrats want. And that the Republicans want to do the exact opposite. They want to ban the abortion pill throughout the country. They already tried to do it in Texas. The only reason why the Supreme Court didn't agree with them is because the plaintiffs that brought that action in Texas lacked standing. That's a procedural decision. It wasn't substantive. The Supreme Court didn't say anything close to that women should have access to the abortion pill. So that case is going to come to the Supreme Court again. But if there is a federal enshrined protection for abortion, then, they can't, then the Supreme Court can't then overrule it with this, attempt through the Texas court. So here we go. Let's talk about what happened in Texas, what ProPublica reported. 2 women died because of the fact that they weren't able to get care after having a miscarriage. And I'm going to say their names because these women's deaths are a direct result of the extremist law that Texas enshrined, and then, with SB 8, which basically banned abortions after about 5 weeks. And then the Supreme Court did nationally with Dobbs. And there's been 2 women in Georgia have died and 2 women in Texas have died, and their deaths are senseless. And this is why there was a push to begin with Roe to begin with, because you're never going to stop abortions. It's been happening for thousands and thousands of years. Roe only allowed safe abortions, access, regardless of your wealth, to safe abortions. And women die and babies also die. And I'm going to talk about that too. But the 2 women who died in Texas that ProPublica was talking about, really tragically, it was Josella Barnaca, 28, and Navia Crane, 18. And their deaths they were having a miscarriage. The fetus was dying. And in order to, normally, if you didn't have this really extreme law, you would perform what is considered an abortion. But at that point, if the fetus is dying, it's not what you would maybe see as an abortion in a traditional sense. But what happened was with Joselle Barnaca, the doctors were unwilling to perform that surgical procedure to remove the fetus until the fetus didn't have a heartbeat. It was dying. The fetus. The doctors knew it was dying. It was just a matter of time. But they were afraid to violate the law because the fetus still had a heartbeat. So they waited until there was no heartbeat. And at that point, I mean, you literally have something dying inside of this woman. And that is creating bacteria, and it created an infection that she ultimately died from. A very, very easily thing, before Dobbs, before SB 8, this wouldn't have been such a risky procedure because doctors know what to do. You would remove something from your body that's literally dying. And with the other woman, Joselle, for Nevia Crane, her situation, same thing. The fetus was dying. She had to have 3 different emergency visits. 3 different emergency visits. She was having a baby shower. She was expecting to celebrate this birth. And she, this, not like it necessarily matters, but it gives a window into how expansive this bill is and how it affects women, regardless if they want to carry that fetus or not. So what happened there was the doctors insisted on having 2 different ultrasounds. Again, third time she's in the ER, insisting on having 2 different ultrasounds to yet again confirm that the fetus was no longer alive. And at that point, same thing. The infection had spread, the bacteria had spread. She went into sepsis and she died. These 2 young women dying needlessly. But if you think that the consequences of Dobbs are limited to these few women, it is wrong. Research has shown that since Texas is a really interesting case because Texas, the SB 8 went first. That came out before Dobbs. So the amount of research that you can tell in Texas is telling because it's been there longer. And from 2019 to 2022, the rate of maternal mortality cases in Texas rose by 56%. Yes, you are hearing that right. 56% compared to just 11% nationwide. Because again, they were earlier than the rest of the nation. And then if you think it's just affecting the women, a study has shown that since Dobbs, infant mortality rates have skyrocketed. And it says since June of 2022, the Dobbs ruling, there is a much higher rate of infant mortality rate. And that is because babies are being born with serious congenital abnormalities. So that means that they essentially are, they are born because they have not been had access to abortion care, but they were not healthy enough. They were going to die. And the sad part about that statistic is those, whether or not it was a single family mother or if it was a mother and a father involved, that family knew that that fetus had that kind of abnormality. And that woman still had to carry that fetus to term, knowing that fetus was not going to live. And she had to go through her delivery, which in itself is one of the most dangerous things a woman can do. And she had to give birth to that infant. And I cannot imagine what a family, to go through something like that, knowing that your fetus is not going to live. And so, but that is one of the consequences of these men, these Republican men thinking they know what's best and taking away choices for women, for men, for families of what they're willing to go through, what they're willing to put their bodies through, what they're willing to go through as a family, and taking away doctors' ability to provide women the kind of life-saving care they need. And there is real consequences. And it's not too late if you haven't voted yet in places like Texas and throughout the country, because that Project 2025 is really serious about their plan. They want to track menstrual cycles. They want to ban the abortion pill across the country. And that Vice President J.D. Vance, he thinks that your value as a woman is less if you have decided not to have children. And that's what he thinks about your choices around things that are as important as whether or not you want to bring a child into this world. So I think Michelle Obama said it best when she pled with men, take our lives seriously. Let's hear it one more time.
So I am asking y'all from the core of my being to take our lives seriously. Please, do not put our lives in the hands of politicians, mostly men, who have no clue or do not care about what we as women are going through, who don't fully grasp the broad-reaching health implications that their misguided policies will have on our health outcomes. The only people who have standing to make these decisions are women with the advice of their doctors. We are the ones with the knowledge and experience to know what we need. So please, do not hand our fates over to the likes of Trump, who knows nothing about us, who has shown deep contempt for us. Because a vote for him is a vote against us, against our health, against our worth.
My name is Dina Doll with the Legal AF channel. If you haven't yet voted, go out and vote and free subscribe to the channel. We're going to be keeping you updated this week on all of the election legal news that comes out.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.